The fallout from even the partial release of the Epstein files continues as the general counsel of perhaps the most powerful financial bank in the world is forced to step down because of her correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein. This is in addition to the former chairman of Paul Weiss, the law firm that first capitulated to Trump, Brad Karp, also being forced to leave his position. Now, the MeidasTouch reporter Pablo caught up with Ro Khanna. Of course, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie led the efforts for the discharge petition that ultimately resulted in the Epstein Transparency Act. Pablo asked Ro Khanna what he thought about the fact that we are starting to see some forced resignations around the world and what that means for figures here in the U.S. Take a listen.
But, here's the point. This is bringing down the British government. It may bring down the British monarchy. It's bringing down countries and the elites across the country. What are we doing here in the United States to stand up to the Epstein class? I mean, we've got a commerce secretary who's all over the Epstein files. Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage at the billionaires in Silicon Valley, in finance, in Hollywood, going to Epstein's island? We need moral accountability in the United States, just like they're having in so many other countries around the world.
Congressman Ro Khanna, absolutely correct that around the world, people are being held to account much more rapidly and at a much more higher level than here in the United States. We have the Sultan Salman, head of an international pork company based in Dubai, forced to step down. We have international countries from the UK to Norway looking into their figures' interaction with Epstein. That is much less than Trump's interactions with Epstein. But at least we are starting to see some forced resignations, some accountability. And as they say, once they start having cracks, the whole thing can fall apart. Now, the Goldman Sachs General Counsel, Kathryn Ruemmler, she is the latest person to have to step down because of her interactions with Jeffrey Epstein. According to the files, she interacted with him between 2014 and 2019. Now, she was in the Obama White House counsel up until Obama left and she went to private practice. So she was in private practice at Latham and Watkins at the time she corresponded with Jeffrey Epstein. She went to Goldman Sachs in 2020, and as we know, Jeffrey Epstein was indicted in 2019 and ultimately died in jail awaiting his trial. So her correspondence was during that time. Now, Latham and Watkins is a very large LA-based law firm. I started practicing law at a very similar friendly competitor to Latham and Watkins, Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. We had a very strict policy on whether or not we could accept gifts. In fact, our professional ethics responsibility as lawyers have a very strict policy on when you can accept gifts. Now, she has said that she now believes Epstein to be a monster, and she regrets any association with him. And she says that he was never a formal client of hers or any law firm that she worked for. But we see in the correspondence that she gave him advice. She gave him advice about how to talk about his charges, how to talk about the fact that he has been accused of the sexual abuse or have been convicted of it, and how to relate to the media about it in order to make him look better. In fact, according to the DOJ, the night that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, she was one of 3 people that he tried to reach for advice. Now, you could argue whether or not that is legal advice, but according to our professional responsibilities as a lawyer, you don't need a formal agreement in order to have an attorney-client relationship. You don't have to sign a retainer in order for our ethics and responsibilities to kick in. If the client thinks they are in an attorney-client relationship because of how we have interacted with them, then an attorney-client relationship should exist. So the fact that she took these kind of gifts from somebody that she was giving advice to seems to have possibly violated not only her own professional responsibilities as a lawyer, but also the Latham and Watkins firm-wide guidelines for not being able to accept gifts. Because of course people sometimes give their lawyers, let's say like a holiday gift basket or something like that. What Epstein gave her was much worse. In fact, the gifts were so large, she called him Uncle Jeffrey because she was so happy with the gifts. He gave her $10,000 in gift cards to Bergdorf Goodman. He gave her an Hermes bag worth about $10,000 and other luxury clothes, etc. Evidently, even 1 million points in airlines. You see also he gave her first class tickets. These are the kind of red flags as a lawyer you have to be very careful about. Whether or not this could be seen as having created an attorney-client relationship, or whether or not this even creates a conflict of interest because it could be perceived as having created an attorney-client relationship. This is why it is not a surprise that she was forced to step down from Goldman Sachs, not only because of her apparent desire to help Jeffrey Epstein after the 2008 plea agreement that he entered into, but also the fact that she was continuing to help him and receive large gifts in return. She was evidently not only the chief legal officer, not only the general counsel, the very top lawyer at Goldman Sachs, perhaps one of the most powerful banks in the world. She was also on their reputational committee. So clearly she had to step down. The reason this is so important is because nobody has been held to account prior to this except for Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And we see in these DOJ files how many people helped support the network. Whether or not it was a literal quid pro quo in terms of actually helping the abuse, nobody is saying that she did that. But if you're helping to prop him up and he is committing the abuse, this is why the country, American people, want to have transparency and accountability, because everybody who helped him is part of the problem. I'm all about the most efficient and effective skin and hair care routine, and it's even better when they're on sale. And the iRestore Illumina face mask and the iRestore Elite are on sale now for President's Day. They're having a special bundle sale. Now, the iRestore Illumina face mask is a dermatologist recommended LED mask that delivers double the power of most competitors with 360 medical grade LEDs. The iRestore Elite features their most advanced hair regrowth technology equipped with trademark Vixo lasers. Now, what I love about them is how easy they are to use. You could just sit on a couch, you put one either on your head or the other on your face, and you press play. That is it. And the really cool thing about the mask is it has 3 different wavelengths. It has red, infrared, which both support anti-aging, stimulate collagen, improve hyperpigmentation, and boost blood flow, and the blue light, which helps reduce blemishes, clear acne, prevent breakouts, and shrink pores. And unlike a lot of other masks where you have to switch modes, this one is the first on the market that allows you to use all 3 modes simultaneously. So iRestore is kicking off their President's Day sale with some big savings. And right now you can get the Elite plus Illumina face mask bundle at an exclusive deal when you use code mistrial at iRestore.com. That's mistrial at iRestore.com. Please support my show and tell them I sent you. Give your hair and skin the upgrade they deserve so you can feel confident and refreshed. Now, Brad Karp, the former chairman of Paul Weiss, is also in this situation. In fact, he took a look at the 2008 draft prosecution agreement and gave input on it, but he still claims that somehow there wasn't an attorney-client relationship. I mean, the attorney-client relationship, again, is decided based on the client. Jeffrey Epstein is no longer here, but arguably, if he was, he could say that that created an attorney-client relationship, which not only created an issue for Brad Karp, but Paul Weiss, who he had a responsibility to. I mean, there's a lot of lawyers there who I'm sure didn't want Epstein to have a client, or at least be able to vet it like any other client. But here's where things get even more interesting. Evidently, he met Jeffrey Epstein because one of his clients was Apollo Management, who at the time that was started by Leon Black. And as we know, Leon Black was the one who had to settle with the U.S. Virgin Islands, who sued him saying that his payment to Jeffrey Epstein of over like about $160 million, which he says was for trust advice. The U.S. Virgin Islands said that just helped Epstein's criminal scheme. He settled with the U.S. Virgin Islands. He's also the one who testified in Congress when they investigated the 2016 election, whether or not Russia interfered, and testified that he was with Trump in Russia in a strip bar. This Leon Black, the one who was also just mentioned in the Ghislaine Maxwell habeas corpus petition as her way to perhaps try to reveal secrets to get a clemency, very unclear, but she said that there was 25 secret confidential agreements that men entered into with victims. And then she also calls out Leon Black in that filing. That Leon Black was a client of Paul Weiss, and specifically Brad Karp. And that's how he met Jeffrey Epstein. So he actually met Jeffrey Epstein through Leon Black, which Ghislaine Maxwell is naming in a filing as somehow trying to say he was involved in the trafficking of women, or enough that she's calling him out specifically as either a nod to Trump or a threat to him. It's a little unclear with Maxwell, but he's called it out, and that's a circle. And then it gets worse because Paul Weiss was the very first firm to capitulate to Trump. Now, as we know, when Trump did that executive order, basically saying that law firms had to do his bidding, some law firms fought it and won because it was so clearly a violation of a law firm's constitutional rights, like the free speech. But Paul Weiss led the field and was the very first one, instead of trying to fight it, instead capitulated to Trump. And guess who was the lawyer, the public-facing lawyer on that? Was Brad Karp. Brad Karp, whose client was Leon Black, who showed up now in these Epstein files and then was forced to step down as chairman. This should just be the beginning. Howard Lutnick should be next. As we know, Howard Lutnick emails contradict his earlier statements that he met Jeffrey once, didn't do it again because he was so horrified. But instead, we find out that somehow he stopped at this island and brought not only his family, but his nanny, and that he had discussed the nanny with Jeffrey Epstein. So it's not that it's good, but although it is good that people are starting to be held into account, it's hopefully just the beginning, because Pam Bondi may not have been willing to turn around and acknowledge the failing of this government to the Epstein survivors when she was asked to do so at the hearings this week. But the rest of us believe those survivors deserve an apology, and the best kind of apology is accountability. My name is Dina Doll. If you haven't yet subscribed to the MeidasTouch Network, be sure to do that. Subscribe and listen to the Mistrial podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out our sponsors in the description below. So grateful for the Mistrial sponsors because they never censor what I have to say.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.